Namaste, bitches. What's poppin'? Hope you guys are good. Recently, I posted a video about that was titled "Life is Suffering," and I guess this is just a little bit of a continuation or kind of more in-depth look at what that means, at least to me. If you haven't seen it, check it out just for more context. But yeah, man, I think one of the things that came to mind was a story that actually happened to me recently. Um, I remember it was late at night. I was already tired, kind of had a long day. I was frustrated. I was just trying to get home. You know what I mean? I was driving, and all of a sudden, this rabbit ran across the road, right? And I slammed the brakes, and I managed to stop myself. And my heart was racing. I was like, "Oh shit, that could have got south real fast." You know what I mean? And the thing is, I didn't fully stop though, because I was going kind of fast. So I was managed to slow down for the rabbit to run past, and then I kept driving. And out of nowhere, a next rabbit that I think I had fucking ADD ripped it across the road because he kind of like looked back, did a double take, and he's like, "Should I go? Should I not?" And then he ran anyways. And yeah, I fucking hit it, bro. I hit the rabbit. Um, and it was crazy because I've been vegetarian for like 3 years. I just started recently eating fish and like eggs and shit again. I'm still debating if I still want to do that, but that fucked with me, bro. Like, you know what I mean? I hit this rabbit, and then I heard the thud, and I drove back around. I did a U-turn to try to go back and like see if this thing was okay. And I saw it sitting on the floor, just twitching. You know what I mean? And I got out the car and I walked up to the rabbit to try to help it. And then all of a sudden, it just got up and it booked it. It just ran back into the bush. Like it just came back, like the fucking. It was like a Walking Dead bunny. I don't know what to call it. Um, but yeah, I just remember getting back in the car and just feeling like I was already feeling frustrated, and I think that kind of almost added to it, like added to that feeling of like having a fucked up day or a fucked up week, whatever the case is. And my mind just started racing, man, like thinking about like, yo, this bunny's gonna go back into the bush, it's gonna die, and it was my fault. Like I caused this. It was my doing. um and then it quickly changed into me judging myself as a human being. Like it quickly changed from like me hurting this rabbit to like, oh, like look at how shitty of a person I am, and like this being an example to kind of um or using this scenario and this event as an example to almost justify that core belief of mine of like me being a shitty person or a bad person or whatever the case may be. And it added to, um for lack of a better term, it added to the suffering that I was causing myself, because I was already going through obviously not the most challenging, like I wouldn't say the most challenging period of my life or the most challenging time. It was just like, it was just one of those days. But I think I was making it worse from the projections and the thoughts and the narratives and the dialogue that I was feeding myself, because realistically it was an accident. Like I didn't mean to do any of that. And even more so, if I were to um if I could have done anything differently in that moment, what could have maybe prevented the whole situation was probably paying more attention and not speeding or whatever else the case may be. But in doing what I was doing, I was actually doing the complete opposite. Instead of learning from the event that just took place, I was becoming a victim to the situation. I was blaming myself, and again, I got caught up more in my head and more in this belief system that was about me, rather than like the rabbit itself or whatever else is around me. And I think when I noticed that, I realized that that is oftentimes what happens in many situations that we find ourselves in, which we find challenging, or if we're going through hardship, or we're going through a period in life where we feel like we're suffering, is that we often feel like we are the victim to the events that happen, to the circumstances that happen. And I'm not saying that there aren't things that take place that are not our fault that still hurt us, you know. I know like some of these things could be this is kind of I wasn't really gonna talk about this. I guess since we're on the topic already, but I know this year especially these past 2 years have been very challenging for many of us. Very difficult for many of us, and for myself in particular, I've actually lost people that I recently began to cultivate a relationship with, like a friendship, and I've lost friends, and for those of you who know, I work within the field. I work with a lot of young people, and a lot of the young people that we serve, that we work with, have also passed, and I think that is an example of certain things that are out of our control that we know is a natural process of life. And I think the hardest impact that sometimes the biggest impact that these scenarios specifically had was that sometimes it feels like we could have done more. We could have been there for that person. Like sometimes I'll even replay things in my head, like, yo, like why did I ignore that text? Or like, I could have hit this person back. I feel like I could have made more of an effort to be there. Did they know I actually cared? Did I do enough? But again, um, these are things that come back to us, right? Come back to our doing, and what is it, and the suffering that we're dealing with. And I think the point I was trying to make with that is that there's certain things that we will endure that are out of our control, such as this like, the death of a loved one, um, people doing us wrong, us maybe going through a challenging period in our life, whatever that may look like, that we didn't have a part in, that kind of just happened at random, so to speak. And I think in those moments, as hard as it may be, once we're able to come out of that, whatever that looks like, there is, I feel, an opportunity for us to realize why being a compassionate, being a loving, being an empathetic and understanding human being, why that is so important. Because we don't know the amount of bullshit people are dealing with day to day or around us. And even more so, sometimes that may be the only thing that someone else needs that they haven't experienced, whatever capacity. And people say it all the time that good guys finish last, or like bad shit always happens to good people. But I think it's important to also ask what a good and bad person is, or what a good and bad event is. Sometimes, if we're able to embrace the event and take the lesson from it, and going back to the whole rabbit situation, I've learned now to be more present, and why being more present is important, not just with driving, but just in everyday life. Because to me, that was a metaphor. That was an example of a moment in time where I wasn't present, where I wasn't there, and where I wasn't being mindful of my actions, and what I was doing, and the consequences that came with that. Not just for me, but for the people around me. The same way when we lose a loved one, or we're in a challenging position in our life, it's very easy to get caught up and see the world around us as nothing but shit. It's very easy for us to get caught in this mentality of us being a victim to our circumstances, and all of these bad things are happening, nothing good is happening. And we get caught in that storm, that I talked about before. And once we do that, it not only affects us, but it tarnishes our relationships with others. It inhibits our ability to create more loving and healthy relationships. If anything, it also puts a great deal of pressure on those around us, those that love us, those that care about us. And I'm not saying this to be I'm not saying this in a sense of like, yo, if you're sad, just suck it the fuck up. Like that's not what I mean by it at all. I'm saying this out of personal experience by meaning that, if you are going through a challenging period in your time, if there's things in life that are causing us to suffer the way we are, sometimes taking a second to, maybe talk to someone, or even more so, just taking a second to observe where these feelings, these thoughts, and things of that nature are arising from, and creating space between them can give us a chance to think before, or give us a chance to at least have a choice in whether or not we want to participate in that, like in that game of like, oh man, like this is shit, like I'm never gonna get out of this type of thing, you know what I mean? And and I'm laughing just because like that's something I used to do a lot. Is that like, we don't notice it, but when someone triggers us, or like when we're going through a tough time, is that like our mind automatically goes there, and we don't even recognize like what we're doing to ourselves. So I think the reason why I say create space is that the more space you have, the better observation you have, the more awareness you have of the things that are happening. And you know yeah, man. I feel like I went off on a tangent, but you know, um, I guess the best way I know how to wrap this whole thing up is there was a book I read that I highly recommend if anyone wants to check it out. It's called Man's Search for Meaning, and the story itself encompasses a psychologist, psychiatrist who was actually part of the Holocaust. He was one of the survivors, and he talked about life in the concentration camps and the immense, suffering that these people went through, the immense turmoil and hardships and challenges that these people went through, and how they, in a sense, overcame it or were able to endure it. And what he said at the end of the book is something that stuck out to me the most. And he said there was two things that happened to many of the survivors that came out of that situation. And it was either that they were able to heal the trauma that they had endured, learn from the suffering that they did, and become more compassionate because of the things that they had been through. And or the second thing that happened to some people was that they went through that immense amount of suffering and used the wrongs that had been done to them to justify the wrongs that they were allowed to do to others. And I think that kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier on, is that the challenges that we face, the suffering that we face, gives us an opportunity to be more understanding and empathetic to those around us who may be going through the same thing. So just be gentle with yourself. Remember to take care of yourselves, love yourselves in this point in time that we're in, too. No matter what it is you're going through, um, know that at the very least I care, I give a shit, I appreciate you, I love you. Um, and if I've ever caused that harm to anyone, just know that I apologize, man, wholeheartedly. Um, yeah, yeah, thank you. I don't know if that got too much for everybody. I know I didn't have too many jokes in that. I really didn't think I needed jokes in that, but Uh, I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. Um, and yeah, man. Peace and love. See y'all at the other side. Namaste, bitches. And to everyone who has dealt with the loss of someone that they loved within this past year or past 2 years, wherever the case may be, my heart goes out to you. And to all of those that left us, I hope we are able to carry with us your teachings, your blessings.